everyone, Krista Moser here. Today I get to show you my brand new pattern. This is Bespoke Stars. Isn't it fun? So the pieces are pretty large, so it's a really fast quilt to put together, and it's perfect for novelty prints or large scale prints, which a lot of times we don't have good patterns to use those for. So what I thought I'd show you is some of the process. This uses the large ruler. So if you have the 60-degree diamond ruler by Creative Grids, the large size, it isn't good for the mini size. So if you've got the mini, you really do need the large because almost all the cuts are done with the large. So what I've got here are some strips cut from this really fun fabric collection. So I've layered up a couple of them, and I'm just going to use my hexagon line. So this is not a line that I've used a ton before, so maybe this will be new to you. Did you know that this ruler does hexagons? We have two sizes on the large ruler, a 4.5 inch and an 8.5 inch hexagon. So I'm actually using the 4.5 inch hexagon line, and I'm making long hexagons. So they're very elongated. So the 4.5 inch hexagon lines come right from the center of the ruler. They're the white dashed lines. So I'm just using those lines here. You can maybe see this. I've got my strip across the middle of the ruler, and I'm lining it up, the white dashed hexagon lines, and then we've got some other lines to carry it on across. So there's these star burr lines that follow where the white dashed lines stop. So I've just centered it on my strip here. I've got a couple colors, so I will cut through 2 layers here. So here I am, just essentially making a very long hexagon. And those are the spokes. So here we have 2 cuts like that. And then I'm going to cut some background. Now the background cuts are very simple as well, also from large pieces. So let me grab one of those strips here. And in this case, I used a variety of backgrounds to really show off different parts of a collection of fabric. So I've got a wide strip here cut of one of those neutral backgrounds. So I'm just lining it up along this line here for a triangle cut and the flat tip across the top. And the way this one works is you're just trimming here and here. So also some large pieces. And then I'm going to turn the ruler around to get myself another triangle. And I'll just continue to work my way down the strip, getting these large triangles. Do one more. And I cut some earlier, so we'll use a variety of those too. Okay, so we're gonna have some stacks of those. And these. I'll set these aside, and the ones I did earlier. Now we have a couple of other cuts. Now one of them I have done. And so it's totally finished, but this one, a narrow strip, and here I'm using the smallest end of the ruler, just a little triangle, so we need some of these cuts, just like this, and another triangle, and turn the ruler again for one more triangle. That'll get us some to work with. Now the last cut is a diamond cut. So I actually already did those, and you can see how this works. So it was a strip out like this, and you just take the ruler and you're turning it to the side now. So triangle cuts come in this way, diamond cuts come in from the side, and you follow the solid black lines on the ruler. So I gave myself some diamond cuts. Okay, so you want to see how this goes together? It's so simple. So basically there's 2 blocks. What we have are one of the spokes. You take your small triangles. Let me see where I put the rest of mine. Okay, so for more variety, right? So I've got one here, and I'm going to put another one here. You're going to sew this unit together just like that. You're going to sew a bunch of those, as a matter of fact. So you would just do a pile of these. Here would be another one. Mix up the variety a bit in your background to give yourself something different. So those units come out like this. And this creates a unit here, as well as the units go across. So what we have are 2 rows. We have wide rows here and narrow rows here. So that's all. It's the wide rows the wide rows, and the narrow rows. So here is what you get. You're going to start with these units, make a pile of those, and then the ones that you don't sew the little triangles to, you sew the big triangles to. So they go in like this, and you make, this makes the wide rows. So you're going to do here and here. You're going to do a series of those. So I actually have some of those already sewn together, so you can kind of see. Here they are. So you would do a wide row is created by units like this. Imagine this one separated by the narrow units. So we have wide unit, wide unit, and this creates a wide row all the way out across. So we're going to sew these seams here. And that creates a zigzag of our spokes. Now the narrow units are not using these wide ones. You just take these units and turn them this way. And now here you have separated by the diamond cuts. So those same spokes, we get our diamond cuts and we do these narrow rows. So you sew these together with their seams like this, and then we join the rows, and that's how you end up with the spokes. So I thought I would actually show you some of the sewing process. I press all my seams open. We'll talk about bias meets straight and straight meets bias and the importance of that. And then you can kind of work on some tips and tricks of how to assemble to get all of your intersections to match up. A lot of times I get emails about how to piece diamonds. This will teach you how to do that. So it's a simple enough process. I'm going to grab my sewing machine and get kind of set up, and then we'll come back to do a little sewing. Okay, so here we are with the sewing. So here I'm going to lay out my pieces in piles, my spokes. Now this is for the wide row units. So I've got my spokes here. Now I'm taking the triangles. Notice I've got my flat tip up, and I'm going to put the next one over here with the flat tip down. And so what that's actually going to do is it's going to take and turn this top and bottom edge into a straight of grain edge. That's going to make ease of piecing later on. So just be thinking about that. Now, of course, you can turn these triangles any direction. If you have a directional fabric that you're using, you know, you're welcome to turn them around. It's not going to change the overall look of the quilt really, but just be considerate of bias meets straight and straight meets bias when you do that. So what I've got here is my flat tip up, my flat tip down, and I'm going to combine these two. So I'm going to sew this seam. And here's what's so nice is having that flat tip gives me a perfect match-up point. So here I've got my flat tip matching up here. I'm going to sew this seam. Now, in this case, my bias edge is the triangle, so my background one. So I'm going to match myself up here, but then I'm going to flip it over and put it through my sewing machine with the grain side up, because that's the straight of grain side, so keeps my bias towards the bottom. I can't stress that enough. Bias on the bottom will make all the difference when you're piecing angles. I know it's something that some people have to kind of get used to and they wonder if it really makes a difference. It really makes a difference. So whenever you are able, consider bias on the bottom. Okay, so here I'm going to sew. And I'm going to press this seam open. We're going to do that. Okay. Now I'm going to sew the other one on. Now in this case, my flat tip is down here towards the bottom. So I'm going to use that as my match-up point again, and then flip it over so the grain side is up, because that's my straight of grain side, keeping the bias on the bottom. Okay, we will I'll press this one open, and then I'm going to use this one, and I'm actually going to sew my small triangles to it. So you can see how that works. In this case, you're going to lay them just like this. You would have a small triangle here and here. And in this case, it's a bias meets bias. But there again, I'm able to use that flat tip as my match-up point. So it just works out. And it doesn't matter which side is up on this one because they are both biased edges. And I'll go ahead and sew this other one on while I'm at it. Okay, I'm going to press all these open, and then I'm going to show you how the intersection works to get these things to match up. We have these little intersections here that a lot of times people struggle with to get them to match up, but there's some tricks. Okay. So here we have the wide row and the skinny row, or the wide section and the skinny section to be joined together. So that's the intersection that we want to match. Now in this case, this edge here, where the triangle is the bias edge, and this edge is the straight of grain edge on my spoke. So what we've got here are what I call an X seam. So that means this bottom seam is going up and to the left, the top seam is going up and to the right, so those things are going to crisscross. They will form an X. And it's very tempting to try and match up your seams along the edge, because that seems natural. The problem is once you take your 1/4 inch seam allowance out, now your seams don't match because they're actually moving away from each other. So you need those seams to match or to crisscross a 1/4 inch from the edge. So that's what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to scoot it down until I can get my 1/4 inch from the edge, my seams to crisscross. Use a straight pin, maybe even glue based. Now I've got a flat tip here I can use as a match-up point. That's a good start. And also because I've pressed these seams open, both sides, you will notice that your seams will kind of give you a guide. The outside edge of this one being pressed open should actually match the seam where it comes in here, and the outside edge here where this one's pressed open should match the underside seam. If you did an accurate 1/4 inch seam and you pressed them open, that's a pretty good cheater method to know where it's going to match. So I'm going to go ahead and sew this, and in this case my bias edge is the underside, the triangle edge, so I'm going to keep that towards the bottom. Now, I don't actually use straight pins all that often, but I use a stiletto to help me hold my pieces in place. And so as I'm coming up to a seam like this, I can use this sharp little stiletto tool to peel back the layers and take a look at where my seams are lining up, just as I'm getting up to it, so I can make any sort of last minute adjustments. Okay, well, let's see, the moment of truth. Hey, all right, we've got a pretty good match there. Now I'm going to press this seam open and we'll move on to the next and the next and the next, building our rows. Just like that. So the next thing to join on would be another wide section. And now I've got a match-up point down here. And then it's going to be a narrow section and a wide section. So before I get to the rest of it, this process is very much the same way. So we've got these we've got these narrow sections that create rows, and they just get joined by, in this case, it's diamonds. And it isn't until the next row down here comes in that you start to see this star form in the middle. So these spokes all start to kind of radiate out away from each other as you are building your rows, and then the rows get joined to the next, and so on and so forth. And here again, paying close attention to bias meet straight. Now in this case of a diamond cut from a strip, you have two biased edges and you have two straight of grain edges. And so I'm going to line these up like this. I've got my flat tip to keep me in line, and in this case my bias edge is the diamond, so I'm going to turn it over and sew from this side. I think I'll just add the other one while I'm at it. So there's that one, and now we have this one. Now in this case, we've got bias and a straight of grain, but still the diamond side is the bias, the full bias edge. Okay, so press these seams open. It's nice and flat. And then this one eventually, once this row is done, we'll join it on here like this, and it's going to come together beautifully. Okay, so isn't this fun? I mean, big pieces, so you can use just about any collection, but if you like the fabric I'm using, we are kitting this. So this is a brand new collection, and it's by So Kind of Wonderful, and it's fabulous. So we're doing kits for this, so we are doing pre-orders, because the last time we did kits, you guys really liked them, and they sold really fast. So hopefully everybody will get one this time. So what we've got here is all the fabrics that I used in the original from their collection and the neutral backgrounds. The kit will include the pattern, and of course you need the ruler, the large ruler too. So of course you could do it with anything you've got laying around, but if you like this fabric and you want to get your hands on a kit, we will put a link to this kit in the description box below. And also, if you like the way I did that matching up thing where the 1/4 inch offset, I've actually done a blog recently showing that in picture form. We're also going to link to that in the description box, because sometimes you see things in picture that it's hard to catch in a video. So as I'm talking you through it, you can maybe refer to the picture blog and see, because this application of doing these intersections and these seams this way happens in quite a few angled quilt patterns, and quite a few of mine as a matter of fact, and so I really did a thorough job of covering that. So hopefully you found something interesting here. Thanks for watching. Okay, and I totally forgot, you guys, I've made more than one of these. Can you believe it? So the beautiful collection behind me, but also I did it in a new collection of brights and kind of like children's, you know, think juvenile or children's fabric. Also kind of large prints, novelty prints, and I just wanted you to show you the versatility so you could kind of see if this were a kid's quilt. And my crazy backing. If this were a kid's quilt, it'd be really fun to do too, because you can get a lot of fun novelty prints. Think I Spy or something like that. So think about the options, and there's another one. So I don't know if I showed you the photo or the pattern here. So Bespoke Stars is the pattern, all illustrated with everything I just showed you, plus more, and cutting in different fabric selections. So there you go. Thanks for watching.